It's called a revolution, that trip around the sun. And we equate that to what period of time? We call 1 year. We call that 1 year. We eventually figured out it was this. It was one of those. We all believe that. We call that a revolution. Now, not everyone uses the sun for a calendar. You can also use the moon for a calendar. Because every once in a while there's a full moon. And then it's about 28 and a half days, that half's a little odd, till the next full moon. 28 and a half days to the next full moon. 28 and a half days to the next full moon. Some people say there are about 12 full moons in one trip around the sun. And that would be a lunar-based calendar. You and I don't use a lunar-based calendar. The Hebrews did. Jewish people still do. Now, if I take 12 times 28 and a half, I end up with 342 days in a year. How's that sound to you?
Sounds a little off.
What do you mean off?
Then how did you get to 365?
Oh, because this one says that, how many days in the calendar up here? 365 days in a year. Well, how do you get that? How do you get that?
What we were taught, I guess.
All right. We use the word year, we use the word day since we were a little kid. Now, so I'm telling you, almost everything, many things to do with our calendar is astronomical. It's astronomical. Careful.
Yeah.
Poked you right. That's a year. Ah. How many times have you been around the sun, Bradley? Thank you. You got it, didn't you? Anybody got a birthday coming up? Beginning of February. You complete another lap. Right? I may have said this to you before. Every time you celebrate a birthday, all you're celebrating is what? I made it around the sun again. Whoopee. My 18th lap, that's a big 21st lap, that's a big one there, you know.
How many laps have you done?
58. I have made 58 laps. So, you know, we sing that song. It's Happy Lap Day to you. Just for another lap. Or Revolution Day to you. Now, there's nothing special about that day, is it? For some reason, it's become a big day. Anyway, it's just another lap around the sun. We figured that out. Now, while we're doing that, what else is going on?
Yeah, just rotating.
We're doing a rotation. So why are there, Levi, 365 days in a year?
Because we're revolving over the sun.
Well, that whole trip is called a revolution. Yeah, you do know. You're just not using the right word, that's all.
That's on me.
What, as we revolve around the sun, what's the other R word you want to bring up, sir?
Rotating.
He says we're also rotating on our axis. So, Sean, put these two together. Why are there 365 days in a year? Come on, Lucas. Why are there 365 days in a year? Put the two R words together for us, please.
Do it.
Put the two R words together in the same explanation. Why are there 365 days in a year?
Because the Earth rotates 365 times in each revolution.
Well said. Period at the end. Thank you. It just does. Okay? Now, many of you have been working on Mars or Pluto or Saturn and have other numbers? Who has a planet that does not take as long to go around the sun? I don't need a number. And you have what planet? Mercury. Mercury's an inner planet. We can make this Mercury. All right, Mercury. Hey, it's red and everything. All right. See if I can make it cheap. All right, we'll start them both here. Mercury's back to where it was. What did Mercury just have one? If you were lived on Mercury, you just say we just had a year on Mercury. Didn't take you around 5 years. In fact, when we make a year, it's made 1 and almost 2/3 of a year, doesn't it? Because it has a shorter trip. So if you like birthdays, where should you go live? Or is there another possibility? Venus. As long as you go to an inner planet, you'll have more birthdays. Okay, later in your life, when you don't like being so old, where should you move to?
Pluto.
Okay. I think it's 248. All right. On this scale, Pluto is somewhere in the student parking lot.
Oh, sweet.
And Earth would go around. Earth would go around 248 times before Pluto would finally get its first lap in. So you would never have a birthday on Pluto, would you? Neptune, probably not likely. Jupiter, Saturn, you might get to have 1 birthday or 2. The most. It's all based on a trip around the sun, isn't it? All right, let's go to rotation. This will be tougher. Think of your planet. I know you don't have the numbers in front of you. Who has a planet that spins really fast, faster on its axis? Who do you have? Okay, sorry, I'm going to exclude asteroids from this. I know you have a special one. All right, Jupiter and Saturn spin on their axis in about 10 hours. What if Earth spun on its axis in 10 hours? What would that do to our days per year? We'd have more days per year. All right, we'd have more turns on our axis, like Lucas said. All right. There's one like Mercury has turns really slow. Turns really slow. We'd have fewer days. But 24's worked out pretty good. 24 hours. It's what we're used to. Anything else seems strange. The sun came up and down every 10 hours. You go, whoa, that was a fast day, wouldn't it? Or if it took 50 days to have 50 of our days, presently became 1 day, we go, wow, that day was really long. We're just used to this 24-hour up and down. All right, why are there 365 days per year? Because it takes that many rotations. What we're saying is, we rotate on our axis in 1 revolution. That's what Lucas told us. Any questions so far? That's what it came about. Now, going back to this one. And because of this, things happen about the same time, don't they? It gets cold about the same month every time, doesn't it? It gets warm about the same month, etc. Now, those people who use a lunar-based calendar, what's going to happen to their seasons and their months eventually?
They're gonna get along.
They're going to get off. They're going to get off more, they're going to get off more, they're going to get off more, they're going to get off more. And you and I say June, I think warm. You say December, means cold. But on a lunar-based calendar, eventually it's going to be snowing in August. And eventually it's going to be nice and hot and you go to the beach in January, but if you have a lunar-based calendar, that doesn't matter to you. You don't worry about that. I like regularity. All right, how are we doing so far? All right, if you believe in 365 days in a year, you are a little off.
That's right.
are off 5 hours, 49 minutes. What do you mean you're off? What do I mean your calendar's off? What I'm saying is, let's start here. Right there. 365. And we are not quite back to the beginning of the lap. After 365 rotations, we are that far off. We're 5 hours, 49 minutes short of a complete lap. We didn't finish the race. So what's going to happen over time? What's going to happen over time? With a 365-day calendar. Without adding anything. What do you mean losing days? 365? What do you mean by losing days? I think I know what you mean.
You're gonna have 5 hours and 49 days added on.
You're going to be, okay. So after another 365 days, I'm further behind, okay? And after about 100 years of this, it begins to add up. That's what I'm trying to get out of it. That's what you're thinking. You're ahead of the story. Okay? It builds up. It builds up. It builds up. It builds up. Well, they have been using this 365-day calendar for a couple thousand years. The Sumerians, the Babylonians, way before even Rome. It was working pretty good, but eventually they noticed the seasons are getting off. Our calendar's kind of messed up. Well, they knew, they had this whole thing figured out, but it's tough to break the 365 cycle. Right? If we go up and down the hallway asking random students how many days in the year, they're going to say 365, unless there's some smart aleck out there that gets that 1/4. So, by the year 45 BC, I'm not worried about that year, but 45 BC, a guy by the name of Julius Caesar. And Rome had conquered much of where all your ancestors came from. Most of all your ancestors. Not quite all. From Germania down through Spain up to what's now England, Scotland, down into northern Africa, over into Mesopotamia. Roman rule, great leader. And he said, you know what? Our calendar is off 80 days. Our calendar's off 80 days. Good grief. Now, Julius didn't have to figure this out. Everyone knew the calendar was off, but because he had supreme rule, Caesar was God on earth, he had the power to say, we're going to change things, folks. We're going to fix the calendar. And everyone said, hail Caesar. We'll do it. So in that year, he added 80 days. That year was 445 days long, folks. Now, Mr. Glander here chose to start the calendar on the summer solstice. Actually, the calendar had been started at the spring equinox 2,000 years before. They thought that was important. The first day of spring was day 1 on the calendar.
Sounds like spring,
Julius Caesar added 80 days. And it moved the calendar, the beginning, back to what we now call January 1st. Is anything special happening in space on January 1st? No. It's a dumb place to begin the calendar. Tyler had a much better idea. But the reason that got backed up to what's now called January 1st was we were 80 days off. He had to add it to it. He had to fix it. He had to fix the calendar. And he added 2 months. And he said, oh, since I am Julius Caesar, I'll add the month of And his predecessor, Augustus Caesar, said, well, I get to name one too, and I'm going to call it the month of August. So July and August are named after Julius and Augustus Caesar. And it shoved the beginning of the calendar back to what we now call January 1st. January 1st used to be a spring date. Now it's a winter date because we had to fix the calendar. All right, now, the more important thing was, what did he do to make sure that it didn't get messed up in the future so much? Somebody else, not you, not you. What did he do to fix it, Mr. Woodall?
Had to add a day on every 4 years.
He says 5 hours and 49 minutes is pretty darn close to a fourth of a day, isn't it? So the first lap, I'm about a fourth of a day off. Second lap, I am 2/4 off. 3 years, I'm 3/4 off. After 4 years, I'm 4/4 or a whole day off. So what did he add?
Who's extra day every 4 years?
And what do we call it?
Leap year, or leap day?
And when is leap day? February 28th. Why February? February only has 28 days. It got shorted. They felt sorry for it, so if anyone gets an extra day, we throw it in February. It's a weird time. It'd make more sense to put it on the end of the calendar, wouldn't it? Or maybe at the beginning, but it's stuck in there in February, just because it is. Was this year a leap year? Will next year be a leap year? How do you know when a leap year occurs? Well, it's every 4 years, but how do you know when one? If I said, oh, 1777, Independence Day, Independence. Was that a leap year? Let's see. Oh, 1776 was a leap year. How do I know? It's evenly divisible by the number 4. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Was that a leap year? By golly, that was a leap year too. How about next year? 2013. Can that be a leap year?
Yeah.
Don't even think about dividing it, right? It's an odd number. No way it's divisible by 4, is it? Will not be. How about 2012? Was it a leap year? 2012 was a leap year. We didn't even remember that day, did we? Gosh. So I could give you any date on a test and say, is that a leap year? About the year 57. About the year 400. How about will the year 2400 be a leap year? See, look at that. You guys can just do that. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? Anything on a leap day? How did it help fix the calendar?
Made it on time, where it did go off.
Help get us more on time. It added that missing, if you want to use that term, missing year. Great. But you know what?
So leap year basically just adds a year.
How many, yes, adds a year, doesn't add a year,
Adds a day.
adds a day. It corrects your calendar a little bit, doesn't it? Corrects your calendar. And everyone said, "Hail Caesar." Change your calendars. Everything was hunky-dory. It kept going around and around and around and around and around and around. And they discovered, actually, you know what? We're getting a little bit ahead. They didn't have that figured out at first. Each year they were getting 11 minutes ahead. What's 11 minutes? What's 11 minutes? In about 6 years, that would be an hour. 6 years is an hour, 6 times 1 minute. Eventually it would add up. All right, it's better, it's more precise, it's more accurate. But it was a little bit too much. Way to go, Julius. And by the way, that's known as whose calendar? The Julian calendar. The Julian calendar. So it was 11 minutes too long. But that was a tremendous improvement. All right, by now, the year was 1582. By now, those 11 minutes had added up and added up and added up and added up. And suddenly we were 10 days ahead. We were getting ahead. Getting ahead. All right, there was no Caesar. But who at this point in time in Europe history was the most powerful person in Europe? You're right, the Pope. All right, all you Catholics. At one point in time, all of Europe was Catholic. Catholicism. The Pope was stronger than an emperor. All right? Pope Gregory the 13th. Get it? PG-13. Pope Gregory, thank you. The 13th, thank you. I was one pope short. Pope Gregory the 13th. Just happened to be in the right place at the right time that we now remember him. People were saying, calendars off, calendars off. The Pope didn't figure out how to fix it. But once again, he had enough authority that when he said, we're going to change the calendar a little bit, all Catholic countries changed their calendar because the Pope said so. Pope is the Word of God speaking through him, if you believe in Catholicism. He said we're getting a little bit ahead. So careful here. We are going to go back to the year, let's go back to 1600. That's a double zero year. Is that divisible by 4? Okay, would it have been a leap year according to Julius Caesar? Yes. It fits the Caesar rule. Yes. A for Julius. Is it also divisible by 400? Yes. It fits the Gregory. Did it get to be a leap year? Yes. Because it was divisible by 400. Let me walk you through this. So yes, it got to be a leap year. What's the next double zero year? After this one? After this one? After this one? 1700 would be the next double zero year. Is that divisible by 4? Yes, it is. Julius Caesar would have made that a leap year. Is that divisible by 400? No. Didn't fit the Greek, so no, it gets skipped. That year was cut out as a leap year. See how that reduced us getting ahead a little bit? Well, let's keep playing this game. 1800 is the next one. It would have been according to Julius Caesar. No, it's not, so we would skip that one. And then we go to 1900. Fits Julius, doesn't fit. No, it gets skipped. 2000. Was that a leap year? It was. It fits it, so yes. So in a 400-year period, how many leap years get cut out? 3. So in a 400-year period, cutting out 3 of those leap years helps fix this little problem of the 11 minutes. That's pretty good mathematics. Wow. Now, let's take it forward. This could apply to you. When's the next double zero year going to be? And how old will you be? Bill will be 105. You're gonna be around 104, 105, 106, based on when you were born. Some of you might make it. Down to find it. I don't know. Okay, now, you'll be at the nursing home with all the other people in your wheelchairs sitting around, and it will be that year coming up, and all the other people will be going, all right, it's another leap year, because they'll have much to do. It's a leap year, it's gonna be a leap year. And you will go, I remember something. What was that?
You're gonna have a horrible memory, right?
But what do you remember?
That's a leap.
You remember the old things in your life, right? I'm not trying to insult anybody. I mean, I had a father-in-law and other people who had Alzheimer's. You remember the things old. Alzheimer's prevents you from making new memories. So you'll remember, you might forget my name, but you'll remember this class. There was this globe thing in the middle. There were things hanging around here. What did he say about the year 21? Oh, it's not going to be a leap year. And you'll announce that to all the other old people, and they'll go, oh, you're just old. You ain't talking about it. And you will be right. And they will say, it will hoist you on your shoulders, their shoulders, say you're the smartest 100-year-old person in the
Yeah, they're
building.
gonna break it down.
They might. The next leap year to be skipped, whether we see it or not, will be 2100. Why do we need to skip a leap year every once in a while? Because we've written a little bit ahead. And since this was Pope Gregory the 13th, this is whose calendar? It's known as the Gregorian calendar. And most people, I even saw this as the correct answer on Jeopardy. I yelled at Alex Trebek, because I don't think it's the right answer. I don't like Alex Trebek, he's kind of a know-it-all kind of guy. But guess what? This calendar, come on, guess! It's not perfect either, is it? We went from being almost a day off to being just 11 minutes off. This is off 12 seconds a year. What? 12 seconds? In 5 years, it's a minute. In 300 years, it's an hour. So it's not a big deal, is it? How can you fix a clock that's off 12 seconds a year? Pretty easy. Each year. Say it. Add a second a month. Add a second every month. I now believe we live by the atomic clock. In Annapolis, the world has agreed to the atomic clock. It has a radioactive cesium or something that pulses so many gazillion pulses a second, and then it's like precise. Your cell phone, your, your computer, each month is automatically corrected 1 second for you. Because it's on the network, right? It's all on a network. So we add 1 second each month. And no one knows it, but it is. Fix it. It's automatically added a second a month. Now, I have been driving down the road with the radio on, and it goes, at the tone, it is exactly 12 o'clock. It'll be the first day of the month when you hear that. And it'll be noon. So on the first day of January, at noon, the atomic clock fixes itself on 1 second. Big deal. I'm simply telling you, I don't think we live on the Gregorian calendar anymore. We live on the atomic clock. All right, enough about calendars. Anything else we need to talk about? Why should we work? Go ahead, William. That's okay, scratch that line out. When I was copying and pasting that question, I did it one time too much. So, the original was off about a fourth of a day. The Julian was off 11 minutes. The Gregorian was off 12 seconds. And now I believe we're on. Dylan.
How many days are in leap year?
What else? Chris? Which one now? You ready for the Mayans? Okay, I am too. Anything up to the Mayans? That's where I'm at.
How is a lunar base calendar different?
Oh, we did that way back here, remember? That was way back at the beginning.
Goes by how many full moons.
Right, and we said there'd be some problems with our seasons eventually. Alright, now why worry about being 112 because what's going to happen on December 21st anyway, you Mayans? World's going to come to an end, or some movie says. I'll be out in the parking lot. I don't know. Wait a minute. 21st. Is it at like midnight the 21st? Do we get to live the 21st and then it's the 22nd? Should I come to work on the 20th? Will I wake up on the 21st at all? Doesn't give a time. Just sometime, like I can be out in the parking lot duty and the world coming in right then. What a place to end your life. No.
Almost spend the whole day as a
Some of you are not coming, does not get out of bed that day. All right. Now we think as our ancestors, those Europeans are being so smart, center of all knowledge and all that stuff, which you know what? China and Japan have a lot of smart things going on there too. And actually over here in on the Western Hemisphere, South America, those Mayans, those Aztecs, they have a lot going too. In fact, the Mayans had this figured out long before the Europeans that this thing was off. And they had it figured out way a long time ago that in (1,872) days, or I'm going to use Lucas's term, rotations, we'll be right back at the start. They'll be perfectly back to the beginning. Whoa, the Europeans hadn't figured that out. That's the same as 5,125.36 years. Remember how each revolution, to use the word, remember how each revolution's a little off, a little off, a little off? But after 5,125.36 revolutions, we'll be right back to where we were on day one. And this was simply referred to as the long count. So you could say a Mayan calendar was a rather large thing. A Mayan calendar took in over 1 million years. That's a lot of pages on your calendar, isn't it? And when is their first calendar going to need to be taken off the wall and thrown away? This December 21st, they will have finished a whole complete cycle. So all the Mayans were doing was keeping track of time very precisely. And what would the Mayans, if they were still here, do on that day? They'd get their new calendar at the calendar store and put a new calendar up, wouldn't they? And it would last for another 5,125.36 years. So, Levi, I'm not going to spend all day at home worrying about it on December 21st. Because I'm going to get my new Mayan calendar out and start the next long count. Any questions on calendars? Everything and more you've ever desired to know, isn't it? Okay, probably more than that.